Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our Beacon 23 Season 1, Episode 5 reaction and review. This episode is titled Rocky, which really could mean one of two things. Okay, we're just going to do this right now. What's with the voice acting on this rock? Why does it sound like they're from the Bronx? Why does it sound like they're a character in Goodfellas? I almost expected at some point this rock was just going to look at Halen in so much as a rock looks at Halen, and it's just like, so you think you're better than me, huh? So what? What, you think you're better than me? You got the cab before I get the cab? Just get out of here. Like, what is with this? What is with this accent? Also, if this episode is entitled Rocky, should the voice have been, yo, Halen, you gotta go to the gym, you can get some raw eggs, yo. It's like, okay, I cannot get over how much this talking rock thing is just playing in my head. Why did it have to have that voice? I can't get over it. That's all I'm gonna think about. You want to fight? I'm a rock. I can take you. That's my rock. He's the same name as me. Like,
listen, no offense to whoever was voicing that rock, but it absolutely took me out of the show. This is the first episode where I was like, what is happening with this rock? Like, I know that they were trying to make it that, he's having these hallucinations and that the rock is talking to him, but I feel like they could have gotten that same point across in another way.
yeah, you did not need to make The Rock sound like a angry New Yorker on the verge of fighting somebody on the street. All you had to do was sort of make it more psychological, because that's what this show is. It's a psychological space drama about these two people trying to find a way to connect and trust each other amidst what could be some really dangerous stuff that is happening all around them.
Let us know in the comments if the talking rock really threw you off the show. Because I've seen in the comments, some of you guys are like really not with this show. That you guys are just like, this isn't working for you. We really like the show, and we've seen other people in the comments that are like, yeah, I really like the show. This for me did not work at all, which was like really disappointing, because overall this episode for me was really good. But I love Stephen Root. I love him, and seeing him as Solomon, man, I didn't even recognize him from the episodes before, where he was like coming through on the video and being like, cut the feeds kind of thing. I was like, I just didn't even recognize him until this episode. I was just like, oh my goodness, Stephen Root.
This is what Beacon 23 has done an exceptional job at, is when it comes to casting characters in live action. Note, I say live action as opposed to whatever voice acting choice they made there. They've done a great job of pulling people who we all sort of know or appreciate from other things, and then you bring them into this world. And Solomon's a fascinating dude, like a really, really interesting guy. He's like doing taste tests on various things. He's trying to create art appear in space in his own individual way. We will, of course, talk all about his experimentations, what else is going on there. But we also, for those of you who don't know, we talk about Beacon 23 every week on our live stream, which you can check out at our Patreon. That link is in the description below. They are such fun discussions. We have a great time theorizing and pondering over what's going to be coming up next. And by supporting us there, you help to support us here to make the content that we love to make for you guys so much.
Okay, let's talk about Solomon, because that was a big question, I think, for a lot of us, of like, who really killed Solomon? Because for a long time, I thought it was Bart. And especially after that last episode last week, where we learned that Bart is a liar, Bart is a killer, Bart will go off script and do what he thinks is right. So I was just like, oh, it's Bart. And Bart is like, no, it's Halen. Halen did this. And as we've learned, Solomon, did this to himself. He got into a ship that he knew didn't have enough oxygen in it and took off.
Yeah. It's all a function of this elaborate series of events that unfolds, where Halen wants to land there at the beacon. He realizes he's in a dire situation. He needs to try to land there. Solomon is not about this. Solomon is not interested in this. He keeps trying to be like, what about over there? What about over there? And Halen's just like, no. And so, of course, when Halen arrives, he's going to be upset, because this is somebody who is effectively going to leave him to die. And that's not an
Yes.
easy thing. That's not an easy thing to get over there. I mean, yeah, Halen took it to 11 pretty quickly after he arrived and did the whole I'm the captain now thing, but it's kind of understandable.
I completely understand. Solomon basically was going to leave him to die
Yeah.
so that he could enjoy some ravioli and wine, have a shower and sing and just keep peace in the beacon. But I mean, you're the beacon keeper. So for me, the idea of this beacon is a place that, is a lighthouse, is if you're in trouble, you're able to stop. And, after Halen showed up and he's just like, how dare you? It's very understandable that Halen was as mad as he was, but Solomon was really taking it to another level where he was just like, listen, this is what your map was to get here. Like, you have been traveling for months, not really stopping anywhere, making just a straight line to get here to the beacon. Like, why are you here? This is why I didn't want you to land. Something is wrong of why you just went and went and went and you didn't stop anywhere else to fill up along the way, that you just all of a sudden have to just get here. And we learned that, Halen didn't really know what was going on. He kind of just blacked out.
This is where we get to the stinking rocks. This is the rocks.
Rocky!
What do you want from me? So really, there's clearly something about this rock where, we saw it. It's clearly connected to Halen's past, right? And so it has...
And his present and his brain. Oh my goodness. What a reveal.
It's connected in every single part of him to the point where Halen is just sort of like this zombie being pulled and pulled and pulled towards the beacon. And we already know that Solomon was working on some stuff at the beacon with the rocks. Like, this is a secret that clearly he was trying his best to protect. Like, we can trace a lot of this back to the flashbacks that we saw last week, because mostly the show's not really doing that yet for one reason or another, and sort of think that, okay, whatever's going on with these rocks is probably connected in some way to what Milan had going on here with this plans to conquer death and all of this. Either Solomon is going to find a solution or some other sort of dangerous component to this that he's not even realizing yet. And he's obviously worried about things turning up in the wrong hands. And that's, I think, what makes that dynamic between those two men very, very interesting, is that both of them believe in their mind that they're justified for feeling how they're going to feel. Neither one of them feels like they're the villain. They each feel like they are standing up for something that they believe in. The problem is neither one of them have the ability to see how the other person thinks. I gotta also give Halen an A+ for the absolute petty that was pouring all of that truffle, all that goodness on his food, and over there Solomon's just like, I spent months trying to get. It's like, that would be like somebody coming over to my house, and I, this is a real regret of mine, but it happens. I am a Mountain Dew fan. I should not be a Mountain Dew fan to the extent that I am. I would probably be healthier, but it's like me having a rare can of Mountain Dew that's like some limited edition flavor that's online only. Somebody coming over, asking if they can have a sip of it, and then they drink the whole can in front of me. I would cry, real tears.
Yeah, I was at one point waiting for Halen to just pour some on the floor as well. Just be like, stop. It was so petty, but I understand it. It's just like, oh, you're just getting upset over this soy sauce or whatever, but you were just going to leave me to die. So cool. You know what? I'm going to drink this whole bottle and I'm going to pour some on the floor too.
Yeah, it's a situation here where Halen's clearly upset. Solomon's clearly upset. At a certain point, Solomon just like tries to go in like full on panic mode. He does his whole take off sort of, I don't know what we want to call this, escape, when really he's just setting up his own demise. And what Bart is basically saying here is that by showing up, Halen, you set up all the events that happened after the fact. It is your fault, acting as though Solomon did not have any sort of free will here at all.
Yeah, it was also interesting to see how Bart was explaining away this whole, like, when he was like, take me with you, like, I'm with you, Solomon, you and me, take me with you. And he just like ran out the door and ran into the ship. And even Bart was just like, he didn't take me with him because he was in such a panic over what you did. You ruined my relationship with Solomon, that he just wasn't thinking straight.
Yeah.
Bart is the most interesting character on the show for me. He's so strange, and he's really petty and vengeful, and he really has found a way to like just explain away things in his own AI mind.
Also, Bart, why did you want to go in the first place? Like, clearly that ship did not have a lot of resources to go very far. I don't know how that was going to end better for you in that way. Do you just hate Halen that much that you would rather take the chance on that ship?
Yep.
Clearly, that is the case.
Okay, so let's get into the video footage that Halen had never seen before about what happened on his mission with his team. So the last thing he remembers is seeing one of his teammates get shot. And later she's in all of his like hallucinations that is happening. But that's the last thing he remembers. So he had never actually seen this footage. He's watching it with Aster, and they both see this moment where he encounters these rocks, and this blue glowing smoke ends up going through his helmet. It breaches his helmet and into his brain. So Harmony's like, that's what's happening to him. He has a virus. That's what it is. And Aster and Halen are both kind of like, is that kind of what it is? I mean, maybe. Like, we don't really know what's going on. We know that it's affecting his brain. We can see that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a virus.
Is very complicated what it actually does mean, because it could mean different things for different people. Or this could be a situation where these rocks, if they're refined or taken care of properly, they can do something similar to what Milan was suggesting, but sort of in their pure raw form. Maybe they do have some sort of mind altering power. Or maybe they do sort of have you doing something that is also just like latent within you that you didn't know that you need. Like, I sort of land in this spot where the rocks have a bizarre sort of collective consciousness in their own way, where no matter where they are, they all want you to kind of execute a mission. Maybe it's because there is like an organism living within the rocks that are sort of controlling all of this, but it doesn't seem like any human of their right mind would travel for months on end on a ship without stopping in order to get there. So it feels to me like the rocks are controlling Halen, and the rocks were continuing to control Halen throughout all this episode, to the point where if he didn't do what they wanted, they would just be like, get out of here. And then he would end up being just, floating away. But it just does seem like the rocks have an unusual element of persuasion to them that is hard to identify or understand.
The rocks are using Halen at this point for sure. I mean, they pulled him to that beacon on purpose. They, have infiltrated his mind. They're throwing everything they can at him to try to get him to push up this antenna, which he ends up doing, and all the rocks get set free. But he, they're doing everything. They're throwing his old teammate at him. Harmony's whispering something to him. They're trying to explain something to him. Rocky from the Bronx is showing up being like, you got to do what we say. They're trying everything that they can to get him to release the rocks, and it eventually ends up working.
I think the big question that comes out of all this is, of course, what is this really going to do? Is it a good thing that the rocks aren't so concentrated? Does this mean it's less likely that somebody is going to be able to come in and exploit them? Or, is this an opportunity where they're going to disperse, and this is actually going to end up, quote unquote, infecting like a larger area, and then that is going to be problematic in its own way.
They clearly didn't want to be studied, and they clearly didn't want to be captured. They needed to find a way to be let free, because whatever it is, the secret that they're trying to keep to themselves, they needed to make sure that Aster wasn't going to bring them back to QTA, that Solomon wasn't going to study them, that, now they're out in space sort of thing where they're they're all just revolving around and creating this energy force that Aster says she's seen before.
It's interesting. It could tie in, I guess, to some extent as to why she was there in the first place. If she's got a certain element of experience in dealing with this sort of phenomena. I mean, if you're Aster at this point, you have a very interesting dilemma that you're facing, because it is, number one, you could stay here on the beacon on the other side of this, try to understand what's going on.
Well, she has to now. Those rocks just kicked off Coley's ship, and she got no way to leave.
You could still try to build a new ship.
Unless she's going to try to go on an unsuited spacewalk like Halen ended up on. Hey. Bart, you're trying to kill him again? Stop.
it doesn't seem like staying is all that great of an option. That's what we're just saying, because it seems like QTA's probably not going to take very well. The fact that you offed Coley, we've seen what happened earlier on this season.
All the rocks are gone.
There's nothing is going well at this beacon, and I don't think the superiors are going to like a lot of this. And I think what's an interesting point in all of this to me is that if Milan in his new form or whatever he is still out there, like if he is still either running QTA or a part of QTA, is he going to show up at some point and sort of be like, all this time I had been waiting for all these rocks to assemble to kind of come into this place where we can really study them and refine them and push this technology forward, and now they are all dispersed. How did you let this happen, Aster? I'm going to take out both you and Halen because of this.
I feel like Milan is going to show up again. I mean, we saw him in that form for some kind of reason. I feel like he's still behind all of this, trying to get his hands on those rocks so that he can sort of bring himself back, kind of like Upload for anyone who's been watching that over on Prime, where it's like, your consciousness is put somewhere else until your body is able to kind of bring you back for this forever life kind of thing.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are probably frustrated with this idea of, okay, we spent all of this past episode with other characters. Aster and Halen weren't even a part of it. What's going on here? I know that there's a second season ordered, but it's not like these seasons are necessarily that long. Like, everything we're seeing is for a reason. And I understand people out there who might be saying, okay, the show is moving a little bit too slow, or it's too confusing, or it's not connecting everything well enough. And it's an understandable critique. You're putting a lot of the pressure now on this show that it has to nail the landing. It has to actually make all this tie together, because if it doesn't, it's a disaster. Like, I am still optimistic that it can, because I like the performers. I like Hugh Howey as a storyteller very, very much. So I want to believe that this show can really get there and really pay all this off, but it is a slow burn at times, and I understand that the intimacy of some of these scenes, the small amount of characters, like, it could be a little bit confounding.
I really like a slow ride. I'm more than fine with a slow ride as long as I get a satisfying landing. And I feel like we're going to get there. I mean, we're big fans of Silo, the show. We haven't read the book or anything like that, but they really stuck the landing on that. And I understand that this is a different, it's on a different platform, and that's fine, but it is still the same author. So I feel like they're going to be able to stick the landing here in that same way. Because, it was a slow ride over on Silo with a lot of stuff too, but I'm fine with that. If you're telling me a good story, let's go.
Yeah, and I do think this is a good story. Like, obviously, there's one very obvious misstep that happened within this episode that it didn't feel needed. Just make the rocks have a normal voice, and we're not even doing any of this.
I mean, it's too late to unring that bell, but they just didn't need the rocks to be speaking at all. Halen could have shown it in a way where he's getting kind of that same information, but not actually talking to him, but he feels like it's talking to him in a way. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they could have gotten there another way creatively, where they didn't just have it be very obvious these rocks are talking to him.
Yeah, they're trying things, though. I will give them credit for that. I appreciate when shows take risks, and inherently in doing that, they're not all gonna work, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
We can laugh at when a show does something wrong and celebrate when it does something right, unless it is just like an abject, terrible show. Insert my millionth Idol reference for the year that doesn't do anything right at all. But no, it's just, I'm excited for where Beacon 23 is going from here, and we hope you guys are excited as well. And be sure to check out our Patreon if you want even more weekly discussions about Beacon 23. It is a great time. We have a lot of fun doing it. Thank you to all our patrons for your support. We'll see you here next time.